All right, everybody, welcome to the 368th edition of the Holy Backboard Podcast. I am Dustin here in Rip City, and I got my man.
Sage, man, I'm so excited to talk about this draft. It's not a good draft by any means, but I'd rather be talking draft than talking about a 60-point loss or a 30-point loss type of thing. So, talking about talented youngsters that and their development and what they can do on this team is much more exciting to me than, we our old veterans played 30 minutes and we lost by 60.
If the draft were to be held today, Portland would own the fifth pick, their own, the 10th pick from Golden State, and Tankathon doesn't. Where are we at, Tankathon? There we go. Had to go to the mock draft. The 34th pick, which is Charlotte's second round pick, that is a very valuable pick. That's better than any
That's a high
Lakers round
first.
pick.
Yeah.
And then the 38th pick from Atlanta. So those are two very valuable second round picks. Portland is really stocked in this draft. Probably not the draft you want to be stocked in, but regardless of the draft, whether it's 1986, 2000, 2013, whatever bad draft class you want to say, there's talent. 2000 is probably the ultimate outlier, but
Mm.
there is talent every single year. And if there is a year to take a not a home run, a grand slam swing, it's this year. You need to swing for the fences because this draft doesn't have the Wembanyama. There's no Doncic. There's no Zion. You need to look for the Jokic. You need to look for the Giannis. You need to really probably go overseas and you got to swing big and you got to be patient and you got to be willing to develop and pour into these players and just wait 2 to 3 years and watch incremental growth because I guarantee you every one of those teams who passed on Giannis just like 2 years after that draft probably thought to themselves, we should have took that kid. And he would have been fine at number one and he would have been fine at number 10. Like it didn't matter. This draft in my memory is most comparable to 2013 where there is a consensus right now, and that's who we're going to be discussing as the number one pick. But no one's going to be surprised if this person falls to 3 or 4.
Mm.
I mean, anybody could go number one. I mean, Anthony Bennett, like, so I was working for the Blazers in 2013. I believe we had the 11th or 13th pick, something like that. It was a late lottery pick,
It was CJ.
and we took CJ McCollum. But like mock drafts leaks, I was doing all of the mock draft, collations and
Mm.
seeing who they had us taking. Anthony Bennett was dropping down to us, and I was like, "Oh, this would be really rad!" Like, young freshman from UNLV, like a lot of potential. And then the hours before the draft, he just skyrockets to number one, and that's what I think this draft is going to be like. You can look at mock drafts now, take them with a grain of salt. It's going to be a lot like last year when Bilal Coulibaly kind of came out of nowhere,
Mm.
and all of a sudden you heard first round buzz. Okay, late lottery buzz. Okay, we have teams trying to get him in the top 10, and that's what Washington did. They ended up, beating out OKC and swooping up and getting their guy. You're going to see a lot of that, I think, this year. Just players that may be completely off the radar are starting to fly up. Um,
A lot of
so
foreign-born players are
a
flying.
lot of the NBA is a global game, and I think that's truly where the game is going. Um, and that's one of the reasons I like this prospect that we're about to talk about. So for the first Future Friday, we are going to be looking at Alexander Sarr. He played for Overtime Elite the
Yes,
past
he did.
couple of
I'm going to talk
seasons,
about it.
and now he plays for Perth, which is in the NBL. He is 7'1", 217 pounds. Wingspan has not yet been officially recorded. 18 years old. I especially have a soft spot for him because he is born on my birthday. And that's a big deal because growing up, like nobody famous had my birthday. The only NBA player that had my birthday was Bill Wennington. And nobody wants to share a birthday
That's an
with
L.
Bill Wennington. Like no disrespect, Bill. You got yourself some hardware, but you definitely are the backup catcher of NBA centers. You're just kind of sitting there and okay, Jordan passing me the ball. I'll dump it off for a victory against the Knicks. But that's enough Bill Wennington talk for this episode. From Bordeaux, France, currently number one on Tankathon's big board, and his season averages through January 15th. He's played in just 21 games. I believe he is currently on the mend right now for a
Yeah,
couple of
he took a
weeks.
bad one. I was
Um,
watching the game and I didn't know that he was gonna get hurt. And I watch archived versions of every game. ESPN Australia has condensed games, so I watch all of the Perth games. And he was just dribbling the ball and then non-contact fell, and I was like, oh well, it's over for him. And then he came back in, and now I think it's a smart move that he's gonna stay. He should be 100% for the draft. He's not playing like Perth is giving Bryce Cotton the ball and having him run the show.
Yeah, these international leagues, when you look at the statistics, you're not going to be overblown
Mm,
because they play to win. Like they're not about developing talent. They know their talent goes overseas to the NBA. Like that's their young
yep.
talent. Same thing when we talk about Nikola Topic. That's just what happens. Like they play vets and they play guys who know are going to get them victories. They're not interested in being a farm system for the NBA. So on the season, 21 games, 18.8 minutes per game, averaging 9.8 points, doing so on 48.8% from the field on 7.6 field goal attempts per night, shooting 28.3% from downtown on 2.5 attempts per game, shooting 63% from the line on 2.6 free throw attempts per game, grabbing 4.8 rebounds, 1 assist, 1.2 blocks, half a steal, doing so, like I said, just under 19 minutes with a player efficiency rating of 19.06.
So do you want to talk about? It's been a minute since we did this. Do you want to talk offense or defense first? Because
Well, it has to be. I think you need to do it based upon the player's strengths. And the reason he is considered the top prospect in the draft is for his defensive versatility, defensive impact. You see the new wave of NBA player, and I think we discussed this on a previous episode where you look at Kevin Durant just 15 years ago, and like that was considered like an alien. And now all of a sudden, like Giannis gets drafted, and then Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren, and players are getting bigger, they're getting longer, leaner, faster. Alex Sarr is in the mold of the new wave,
yeah, Evan
basically
Mobley type.
Monstar.
Yeah,
Like
Evan Mobley type stuff.
whether you think he's worthy of being the top pick or not, I think his value inherently, especially for a Western Conference foe, lies in the ability to at least match up the best possible way with Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. Like 7'1", moves fluid, has length. Like no defender is going to shut those players down, but you have to have your own version of a Wembanyama and a Holmgren. Make no mistake about it. He just has the ability to move his feet laterally really well. So for a modern NBA big, you're able to do a lot of different things with him. His length allows him to play drop coverage just enough because he is quick enough to recover and contest shots, but he's also good enough to block shots at the rim, and he's nimble enough to stay out on the perimeter. My favorite thing to do when I look at prospects is to look at like the quote unquote flashes of brilliance, like what gets you up out of your seat. And they had 2 games this year, early in November, which really skyrocketed his stock.
When he got him in when they got the
Yeah,
G
when
League
he
Ignite in this
played the
jail.
G League Ignite, like he had 2 defensive plays. One, he was isolated on the island with Ron Holland,
Yep.
another projected top overall pick in this draft, and he just defensively just walled him up for
Hmm.
a whole possession. I mean, think Kevin Love on Steph Curry in the 2016 NBA Finals Game 7. Like when K Love was just like, no, you're not getting by me, no matter what, and he just clamped up. That's what Sarr gives you the ability to do. You're gonna, especially in today's NBA when offenses are kind of breaking the game, he has the ability to switch on anyone and
Hmm.
do a marvelous job. And then he is just an incredible help side shot blocker.
Yep.
In the same game, Modest Buzelis of the Ignite, another top overall pick contender, had a layup. He comes, basically from nowhere and blocks that shot. He stays grounded on the ensuing pump fake by Buzelis and swats it away. So 2 blocks in one possession just really shows the quick second jump, shows the defensive instincts, the timing. Not everyone can just block shots just because you're long. You have to have some sort of um,
Timing.
wherewithal,
Hmm.
and it's a natural ability to be able to do it. I also like the fact that he is a riser. I like players who show progress. He's one of the youngest players in the draft, and you're not going to get like what you draft now is not going to be the finished product.
I mean, You brought up that he played at Overtime Elite, and I remember watching him in Overtime Elite, and he was missing shots left and right. Like he wasn't even getting it close to center. He was missing wide left, wide right. So there was something inherently wrong with his shot. And now he's taking and making some really clutch three-pointers in Australia. But you bring up his defensive abilities in one of those OTE games I was watching, and Asar Thompson, who we both really like, especially creation wise, they had this 7-1 Alex Sarr guarding Asar Thompson the entire game, and it was Asar Thompson's worst performance. He had him in jail. Like the way that a 7'1" person can slide their feet and play defense on, I mean, like a 99th percentile athlete in Asar Thompson, it showed some really great flashes defensively. And then you look at what he's doing against the G League Ignite in their, foreign versus G League Ignite game, those two sets, and he put Ron Hollins in jail. I mean, he can fit in any scheme defensively with his athleticism, his foot speed, the way he uses his hands defensively. He is a really, really great defender in this league. And you can move your feet with one of the best athletes I've ever seen in Asar Thompson. That's pretty special in a 7-1 body. Um, I really do think that defensively he gives whoever our head coach is next year a lot of options. You can have him be aggressive like we do now. You can put him into drop. The only thing that I think he would struggle with defensively is post defense against Joel Embiid. But guess what? Everybody will get problems going against Joel Embiid in single coverage. So,
Yeah, I think he needs to add more muscle
oh
to
yeah,
play
absolutely.
on ball defense. But again, he's 18. I also like the tools are there. Like he's gonna need more experience, he's gonna need time, he's gonna need nurturing, but the tools are there. Like there he has tools that you can't teach. He has fluid hips, he has nice lateral movement, go gadget arms, solid shot blocking instincts, and he's got a smooth gait. Like those
Mhm.
check all the boxes of a big man. Like you don't want them to be slow prodding. You don't want them to be flat footed. You don't want them to have a hitch in their giddy up. You don't want them to have, lower leg injuries or history
Talk
of
about
lower leg
Donovan Klinging
injuries.
without talking about Donovan Klinging.
Exactly. Like you know
Yeah.
that's a dinosaur. Like they're extinct. I love dinosaurs, but they are extinct. You need somebody who's going to be able to move, and just move really well and smoothly on the court. Yeah,
I
like
mean,
he's just got incredible agility.
with the responsibilities that each center has to do for their teams, he hits everything that you have to do. The defensively, and we're not talking about rebounding because that's probably his physicality, and rebounding is his biggest weakness because he is
Yeah,
seven.
he is not a cure-all prospect, right? He
No,
comes
you
in
need to
and
have like Jared Vanderbilt be his power forward.
you need a Buck Williams, Brian Grant, like Maurice Lucas, enforcer, power
Mhm.
forward that is
Yep.
going to be physical, that is going to rebound the basketball, because he's not that.
And I don't think he ever will be.
No.
And like I think that makes him have like the Evan Mobley type of, he can play center, but he could also play power forward because right now his body is not ready for 82 games at center for any NBA team. He can barely handle 15 minutes in the very, very aggressive and physical NBL, but you look at what he can do just defensively. It's special. You just have to have a specialized rebounder like Paul Millsap or something next to him, so he can he can do all the dirty work that Sar just, his body isn't ready for it. And but you look at the shoulders and you think he could add weight, but I don't want him to be like Donovan Clingan where he adds 20 pounds on his frame and then, issues begin to happen because you're heavy. So it's got to be a nice balance of what can Alex Sarr do to be physically strong enough to handle the physical pains of going against Joel Embiid and all of these other centers in the league that you're gonna have to do a lot of things for. You just slide your feet, try and get into position. But if whoever gets Sar has to have a rebounder at the 4 and the 3, and right now that ain't really happening with the Portland Trailblazers.
The one downside to him playing in Australia and not in the States where you can readily watch him, readily get media coverage. Like nobody is talking about Alex Sarr. Obviously, he's not Wembanyama, but there's not a lot of draft prospects in the current college basketball that I mean, like we said, this is a heavy foreign influence draft class. The one thing that kind of eased my concerns about Chet Holmgren and how long and lanky he was they would do so many features on him and you would watch him
Mm.
and you could just see the toughness and you could tell like he wasn't going to back down. Like he had that ability mentally that he's skinny but he is going to put up a fight and I don't know, I can't answer that question for Sar and that would go a long ways into how much I would be willing to go up in the draft and grab him or not. Like I don't know if
Hmm.
he's got that dog personality where he's just going to be an absolute animal and really enjoy that adversity and the confrontation that Holmgren does. Like that
Uh,
gets Holmgren running.
So I watch Alex Sarr quite a bit, and he's about it. People talk shit to him because highly regarded prospect in the NBL. People try and bully him. He's about it and hits like really high leverage 3 pointers in like the last second and wins the game because of it and talks shit right back. But he has a real hesitation when it comes to actually being physical. But if he can attack via the perimeter offensively, he's got the dog in him. I just think that he knows he's weak physically and avoids it like it's the plague. Like if let's talk offensively. He does not go into the paint much at all. And
No,
yeah, he shoots threes at a really good clip, like 29% from three as a center is really, really captivating. But unless the lane is absolutely wide open, that there's no mess whatsoever, he's not going into the paint and dunking. So that I think that is his biggest weakness is physicality and his just absolute he reminds me of Anthony Davis on the Pelican on the then Hornets where he goes out of bounds so he doesn't get hit by opposing centers. Like it's that level of is he going to ever get physical? Because he's athletic. He could rim run and be a really, really physical dunking machine with Bryce Cotton running and throwing lobs. He could do that, but he's really just comfortable playing perimeter. Which, when you think of Blazers in general, that's cool because Shaden Sharp needs his 2 feet in the paint. Scoot Henderson absolutely does. Anthony Simons. If Jeremy Grant's on the team, if Alex Sarr is there, which I think would be one of the worst pairings in NBA history, he needs the paint too. So it's cool with us because we're so paint dependent. But if you're 7'1" and athletic and can have fluid hips, like set a screen, run to the hoop, and get some easy points in the paint. I actually am really impressed with his decision making with the ball in his hands. Like he if he was on the Blazers, he's probably our second best passer right now because they give him the ball in the high post. He makes a decision whether to give it to a corner sitter or hash sitter, point guard, or in rare occasions drive it. So I'm really high on his playmaking, his decision making. He's just scared shitless to go in the paint and bang with, the Andrew Bogut's of Australia. So like that's the real big thing. Is he going to get physical enough in nature to really want to compete in the paint with people, or are we going to have a 7-1 softy that won't go in the paint and get that much needed board?
it's going to be the latter. I think when you play basketball, like physicality, just it's
It
inherent.
happens.
You're either born with it or you're not. Doesn't mean you can't be a good player. Well, Marcus Aldridge was a good player, but he was one of the softest, most finesse big men in Blazer history. Yet he still is a I don't think he is, but he's a borderline Hall of Fame player. Channing Frye had a very long NBA career shooting threes. It can be done. You just have to really curate your roster around him and make sure that's the pairing that's going to work with what you're building
Yeah, with
because
Scoot and Shaden.
I do think he has grab and go potential
Hmm.
He's capable of dribbling in the open court. I definitely, I think the biggest thing for me, because I don't think he's ever going to be physical. So I think you have to just take him who he is. Like I think he can grow into a better defender. I think he can grow into a good jump shot shooter. Like I think he can do tools improvement, but like style of play, I think this is who you're going to get. So it's not like you shouldn't be expecting um him to become a completely different monster, 3 years out of developing in terms of aggressiveness, physicality. Like that's not his makeup. That's okay. You can still win with that type of player. But knowing that, my biggest swing skill for him is that jump shot. Because if he's not going to be physical rim running, he needs to be a legitimate threat from the perimeter.
Do you
I
believe in
think
his
right now
shot?
I think right now the jump shot's a work in progress. I don't think the form's terrible. It does have a bit of a catapult before the release. I think he does need a little time and space to get the shot off. Hopefully he can speed that up with more repetition. I do think he's catch and shoot. Given the mechanics, I don't see off the dribble being an option.
I
So I
mean, how
think
many 7-1 dudes can move off and shoot?
I'm just that's my notes. That's what I had. Like I'm not this that but again, this is the nature of this draft. I think if we're talking other years, last year he's not a top 5 pick last year.
Is he? Would you have Alex Sarr over Jarris Walker?
No,
I would.
Jarvis Walker is a better prospect in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I think
I,
if
I
he was in
value
last
I,
year's, he would
I
be.
value rebounding,
Yeah.
playmaking, and toughness. And
He's got one of them.
Jarvis gives you all three.
Yeah. I really do believe in what he
I
can
think
do
it's a
offensively.
debate between Sarr and like a Taylor Hendricks. So I Taylor like 9-10 on my board. So I think that's where Sarr would be um, this year if he were in last year's draft class. So as much as I think he could help the Blazers, and as much as I do think he is going to be the top pick in the draft, I know a lot can change, but
Especially if he doesn't play for the rest of the year.
I still, this is a draft where I really don't think you want the number one pick. For whatever it, call it a hunch, call it just a feeling in the gut. But I think the best player in this draft 10 years from now is going to be someone taken 7, 12, 27. Like you just don't know. It's going to be a very weird draft where
Mm.
your scouts, they're going to earn their
This is
money.
where they earn their money, bro.
This is where you earn the money because it could be a draft where Kevin McCullough
Mhm.
ends up being the best player, like, or at least has the best rookie year. You remember when Malcolm
Yep.
Brogdon won Rookie of the Year in 2014? That was supposed to be a loaded draft class. Brogdon comes in as a fifth-year guard out of Virginia and second round pick, wins Rookie of the Year and sixth man of the year. He's had a great career. He's had a better career than I would argue Andrew Wiggins.
Hmm.
And Wiggins was considered the golden goose. So was
I remember
Jabari
we watched him
Parker,
at the
Hoop Summit.
Hoop Summit. Yeah. I was like,
So
damn,
like that.
this
So as
dude's
much
so
as I would
good.
like Alex Sarr on the Blazers, there's just an inherent pressure that comes with being a number one overall pick. Part of me still believes if Anthony Bennett didn't go number one and went slid down further, that maybe he has a bit of a better year. Like there's just so much pressure that comes with being that top dog. Like I think DeAndre Ayton too. Like you
Mhm.
look at him and you're like, that's the number one pick. But if somebody would have taken him at 10, you're like, that's
That's awesome value.
he has had a
Yeah.
10th overall pick career.
Yeah.
Like he's had a solid borderline all-star career. He's a top 10 big. Like, yeah, that is a really good pick. But he was picked ahead of Trey Young and Luka Doncic. And now all of a sudden you're like, kind like you're getting the word bust maybe thrown out, like or underachiever. Like expectations determine how you look at somebody based upon where they were drafted. So uh it's just a really weird draft. My comparison for him is Miles Turner meets Evan Mobley.
Is that
When
the lowest? The
that's
most likely?
I don't have it in
Okay.
me this year to do the
Okay.
bottom and the upper. Like I would say, like if he this is my like yeah, if you draft him and he hits, I think you're getting Miles Turner meets Evan Mobley.
Yeah, I think his lowest tier, because I don't have a child, I can think of this. I think it's Zach Collins. Like, because Zach Collins with a good 3-point shot is kind of what I see at the lowest tier. Like, Zach's not gonna stop you a post up, but he's gonna help side defense. He's gonna play really good switch defense. I mean, and if Zach Collins had a really consistent jumper, and I believe that he'll be like a 37, 38% 3-point shooter. So I kind of believe in that, but yeah, Zach Collins is kind of the low. I honestly think that he could come in and be Miles Turner like day one because Miles Turner has some of the same weaknesses that he does. I think if he becomes Evan Mobley with a jump shot, that's his 99th percentile because Evan Mobley is so special defensively. But I also think Sarr can be too, but it's kind of the mentality. Evan Mobley's absolutely willing to mix it up defensively and physicality in the paint. And I think we both don't really believe in that. But if he becomes a jump shooting soft Evan Mobley, that's an all-star guy, maybe once or twice, but I don't know how you get him to like embrace physicality and try and get to the line or the rebounding is just so scary to me. 4 rebounds and being that tall. I mean,
especially when you're on a team that features Jeremy Grant as
yeah.
your
You
primary
cannot have
rebounder.
You cannot have Tumani who does not rebound well. You can't have Jeremy Grant who does not rebound well. And you can't have Alex Sarr who does not rebound well on the floor. I don't think that he's a center day one though. I think he has to be a power forward till he builds up some sort of, you know, strength to deal with some of these bigs in the league. But I think that this is the number one pick because his warts are the least scary out of all of the other draft, like, top five guys. Like
I
Topic
think I would
cannot shoot.
disagree.
Really?
I think he's the top pick, but I think it's because
How about
his unicornness is the best of anybody in this draft. Like if you get Evan Mobley, if Evan Mobley's in this draft, even turn on the physicality. If you're telling me Evan Mobley's in this draft and that's what you're going to get, you take that a million
all the time?
times over, as great of a player as Topic could be, or one of the French wings, whether it's Risa Shea or Saloom. Like if they bloom, like I just think if Sar hits, I think that's the best player in this draft, and that's like you're just not going to find 7-1 players who move like that. And when the Western Conference, you're going to have to go through Oklahoma City and San Antonio. You need somebody that's gonna match up with those two guys. I mean, that's just like when Shaq was running it in LA. The Blazers had the best collective group
Mhm.
of big men to try and slow him down, and that's why they were the Lakers' biggest hurdle and obstacle to get any of their championships. And if Joe Cronin is worth his salt, he'll realize the teams not now, but in 5 years, who are the teams and the players that you're going to need to go through. Those two bigs
And
in the
Anthony
Southwest
Edwards.
Division, you got to take care
Yeah.
of. You got to find some sort of resistance for them, right? They're not going anywhere. Like they're under contract. They're going to be locked up. Those franchises are both really well run and operated. I don't. You can't anticipate them moving away.
No.
Like they're gonna be big hurdles. You have to figure a way to do it. That's why the Blazers were so improved and made those runs when they added Buck Williams. Like who did they have to go through? They had to go through Karl Malone and the Utah Jazz. Well, Buck Williams was their vice. He went there and he was Karl Malone's kryptonite and made life absolute hell for them. That's what Portland has to start to do, and I think that's why Sar is the top pick. I just wish the top pick didn't come with so much pressure.
I mean, like, let's just say Detroit
And
wins.
and, and in Portland, top
Yeah.
pick pressure, big man number one. Like I would feel really bad for Sar, and I would pray to the basketball gods that didn't that he could just block out all that noise and he could have a healthy career. But that and let's be real, that is a lot of hurdles for a young man to go through.
And then all of the changes that he has to make physicality wise to go against all of these players. Does he fit with the Blazers core? Does he fit with the Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp?
Well, I think he would be really good for Scoot. I mean, you look at the
Yeah, exactly.
success with Dwap Reith, and Dwap is such a really improved 3-point shooter. He catch and shoot, spaces the floor really well. And you're also kind of seeing the deficiencies. He does have deficiencies rebounding the basketball. But if Sar can set the type of screens that Dwap can while also playing man and off ball defense at a higher clip, I think that's going to elevate. I do think sooner or later the Blazers have to find Scoot a finisher because you watch the tape and you see how many just dimes he's dropping, but the shots just Portland does not have play finishers around the rim. So it's not a masterful fit. But at the same time, when you're looking at a defensive prospect like that, you find ways to get Shaden Sharp the ball to play finish. You've got Chris Murray who can hit threes. Hopefully, you can go out and get a wing that can also play finish as well. I don't think Portland really has that small forward, quote unquote, just guy. Like they're
Yeah,
looking for another guy like that. Maybe it's Drew Perry. We've only seen a little bit from there, but I think that's the beauty of Scoot. Pass first point guard. He's gonna
he's
fit
gonna
really
get him in
well.
his
He's
spots.
gonna hopefully unclog the paint for Scoot. And I just think with Scoot's tenacity on defense, I think they could do a lot of really fun things. Shaden's got a lot of the same tools. Like you want to get guys with just a ton of tools that you can mold. Like it's much easier to make something when you have all of the ingredients.
Hmm.
When you're trying to substitute and you have to keep substituting, like that's when the finished product's gonna get like this tastes like ass. But if you have every ingredient, like, this is, 5 stars.
Yeah, I think that he fits with what we're doing, especially offensively. Like the fact that he isn't a paint guy is going to help Scoot. It's going to help everyone. And I think that you can find a lob threat a lot easier than finding a guy that can be this versatile defensively. There isn't that many dudes. Like I said how well DA moves for a big, but if we compared how DA moves versus how Alex Sarr moves, it's a complete like it's different planets of how well he moves, how well his hips move. Like this guy could be one of the best defenders in the league and stretch out the floor for Scoot and Shaden. And I think that's great. You just have to find a roster that makes his weaknesses not as big of a deal. I don't think you're ever going to make him turn into Ed Davis with the physicality. So you need to find a guy that, rebounds really well and can pass in the ball. But like I would really love to see dribble handoffs between Alex Sarr and Scoot Henderson.
I
So
think if you're Portland, just and you really want him, just hope the Wizards don't move him in the top spot
yeah,
because I don't think he's a good fit with Wembanyama. I don't think he's a good fit in Detroit with Jalen Duren. I don't think he's a good fit in Charlotte. They've got
Mark
Jesus,
Williams
they've got
and
bigs for
it,
forever. I mean, they've just got a ton of centers that they've been cycling through. Um, and obviously there are other teams that could jump them, but the teams ahead of Portland right now, like I think Washington's the one team that makes a lot of sense for Alex Sarr. So I mean, there is potential for Portland to get him at 3 or 4, or if they wanted to package some picks and move up. But this is the
Lau
first.
and he would be pretty awesome defensively.
This is the first of many prospects. I don't know who we will do next, but it will be coming out. It's fun once the calendar flips to the actual draft year. That's when I really start to get a little bit excited, especially having 2 picks and just knowing like, hey, like we need to keep adding. Like best player available, the Blazers are in no position to really say no to a prospect. You got to go out there and you got to swing for the fences and take the highest upside, especially this year, because we're not trying to win next year or the year after. Like we're really looking 3 to 5 years down the line, and you want to look back at that draft and say we took what we thought is the highest upside, and we're going to get them to that point.
I agree with everything you said, but you also have you need to find someone with a floor good enough to actually be in the NBA. There's some high upside bets like Matas that I don't think he's
I
that
don't know if
good.
he has the highest of upsides, if I'm being honest, but that's another
But
time for him.
they fucking had him featured at like Combine talking about joining the G League Ignite last year. Honestly, I only see two bigs that are. This is a quote unquote good big draft. I only see two bigs that can do everything that you need defensively. So, but I think that there's a pretty good chance that we have 3 first round picks because of all of our tradable assets in this one. So, as evaluators, you have to stand on your toes a little bit to, look at French players, look at Americans, G League, all of these, Australia. There's a lot of Australian people that I think is going to be good. So, it's going to be an experience trying to watch all this basketball along with watching our Portland Trailblazers lose against good teams. Um, so thank you all for listening. The This will be out Thursday night or Friday. I don't know how excited I will be about posting this, but this was Alex Sarr, the chalk version #1 of this draft class. So thank you all for listening, and we are out of here. Peace.